We're living in a time where people feel almost obligated to display themselves. Breakfast, coffee runs, airport selfies, even a smile they practice 5 times in the mirror. And I'm not here to shame that. It's just the logic of the world we're in. A world that quietly tells you, if no one saw it, did it really happen? So we post, we update, we document, we prove we exist. But there's another kind of person moving through the same world, and they're the ones this video is really about. The quiet ones. The ones who don't flood their feed with their face every day. The ones who go out, travel, love, suffer, succeed, without turning it into content. From the outside, they look like they're not playing the game. But that's the uncomfortable twist. They're not playing because they've already understood the game better than most. Not showing yourself all the time is not insecurity. It's intelligence. You might ask, but why would someone stay in the shadows when everyone else is trying to get attention? Because they know the actual price of visibility. They know every photo you give to the public is a small piece of yourself placed in someone else's hands. And they're simply not willing to sell themselves that cheap. Here's the sentence almost no one says out loud. Saying nothing is also a statement. Not posting, not offering your private life to the algorithm, not putting your family, your house, your weekend, your relationship on display, that is an act of power. A silent act, but powerful. Because when the crowd is running toward exposure, the one who stays behind isn't late. They've just chosen a different path, one where their identity is not negotiated with strangers. That kind of intelligence can't be measured in likes. It's measured in freedom. Think about what it actually means to not live through social media. It means your memories stay yours. Your moments are shared with the people who were actually there, not with 1,000 distracted eyes who scroll past you in half a second. It means you don't have to turn every sunset into content, every dinner into proof, every success into a reel. It's like keeping a secret only you and a few people know. Suddenly it becomes more sacred. And be honest, the most important things in your life are rarely the ones you post. You don't post the argument you had with your parents. You don't post the tear at 2 a.m. You don't post the moment you almost gave up. You don't post the prayer you whispered. Exactly, because those moments are real. And people who don't post have simply decided to live more in that layer of life, the real one, not the performative one. But let's go deeper. There's a social strategy in silence. When you expose everything, you create the illusion that everyone gets to comment on you. You open the door to judgment, comparison, gossip, projection. Your life becomes a public square. But when you don't expose, when you keep distance, something different happens. You become a question mark. And in a world drowning in information, being a question mark is power. What people don't see, they imagine. What they imagine, they respect. This is where many people get confused. They think being seen is the same as having influence. It's not. Real influence doesn't always scream. Real influence is selective. It knows when to speak and when to disappear. Think about those people who rarely post, rarely speak, rarely show up, but when they do, everyone listens. Why? Because they didn't exhaust their image. They didn't dilute themselves in 300 trivial updates. Their absence created demand, and demand is stronger than saturation. This is a psychological key most people never learn. Showing less is actually showing more. Rarity creates value. If someone is in your face every single day, your brain gets used to them. One photo from that person will have more impact than 50 from someone who posts everything. That's why some people with almost no content look more interesting than people who post nonstop. Scarcity in a world of excess is magnetic. And the people who don't post, they know this. Consciously or intuitively, they've figured it out. In an economy of noise, silence is luxury. Now let's peel another layer, the one connected to identity and dopamine. Posting constantly trains your brain to depend on external validation. A like here, a heart there, a you look amazing in your DMs, and suddenly your mood is tied to strangers. Your brain learns, I exist when others confirm it. That's textbook conditioning. You start going places not to enjoy, but to show. You dress not to feel good, but to be noticed. You travel not to experience, but to tell the world you traveled. Life becomes a stage. You become the actor. The audience is everyone else. And the ones who don't post, they've walked off that stage. They eat without thinking. Wait, I should take a picture. They travel without announcing it. They fall in love without soft launching it. They cry without having to turn it into a healing carousel. Their experience is firsthand, not made for screen. Psychologically, that's gold, because it means their emotional life is not filtered through the need to be seen. They've kept something most people have slowly lost. Here's the paradox. People look at them and think, they're private, they're boring, they don't have much going on. But in reality, they're the ones with an actual inner world. While others are giving away their intimacy for crumbs of attention, they're protecting it like a treasure. And in that protection, in that controlled silence, they're building something no algorithm can touch, an inner fortress. So let me ask you something uncomfortable. Who's actually stronger, the person who needs to show themselves to feel alive, or the person who feels so complete they don't have to show anything to anyone? You already know the answer. But most people would still rather keep posting than face it. Because, and this is the part people don't like to hear, not posting is also rebellion. It's a way of saying, I won't let this system turn me into a product. Every time you refuse to show your child, your house, your location, your relationship, you're refusing to be converted into data. You become unmeasurable. And in an age obsessed with tracking, measuring, scoring, ranking, being unmeasurable is power. In a world where everyone wants to be seen, disappearing is a flex. So the real question is not, why don't you post? The real question is, why do you? Do you post to actually connect? Or do you post to be seen? Because those are not the same thing. Connection is human. Being seen is ego. The people who don't post have already picked their side. So let's take this to the next layer, the one almost nobody talks about. The construction of identity through silence. Because yes, some people build their persona by showing everything. Others build it by not showing. And that second group is often far more in control. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's strategy. It's choosing what to make visible. It's understanding that in the human mind, what remains hidden is often more powerful than what is constantly exposed. Pay attention to this. People who don't post often have a certain aura. You don't really know where they are, what they're doing, what their love life looks like, what their house looks like, how much they earn. And because you don't know, you can't place them in a box. That automatically earns them something social media can't manufacture: respect. Because in a world of oversharing, those who can stay silent look like they know something the rest don't. It's the diamond effect. You don't find diamonds on the surface. When everything is publicly available, mood, status, location, fight, breakup, trauma, people consume you like content. But when almost nothing is available, people approach you like a human. And here's a nuance worth highlighting. When you don't post, people can't have a passive relationship with you. They can't follow you in silence and think they know you just because they watched your stories. If they want to know you, they have to talk to you. They have to ask. They have to be present. That alone filters out 80% of superficial curiosity. That's why non-posters often have deeper connections. Not many, but stronger. Because the people who know them didn't scroll to know. They were invited to know. That tiny difference changes everything. A friend who knows because you told them is different from a follower. Now let me ask you something that might sting. If tomorrow you stop posting, how many of the people watching you now would still call, still text, still visit? How many of your connections are actually just spectators? Because people who don't post have already answered that question. They know who's real because they never gave the world a showroom of their life. And psychologically, that's a massive advantage. They're not confused about who's actually there for them. Let's flip the camera for a second. Have you ever gone somewhere and, before even enjoying it, your mind was already thinking, this will look good on Instagram? That tiny thought is the signal that social media has already inserted itself between you and your own life. You're no longer experiencing directly, you're experiencing through the imagined gaze of others. You're no longer at the beach to feel the sand. You're there to prove you were at the beach. You're not dressing for yourself, you're dressing for screenshots. That's performance. That's theater. That's digital acting. And those who don't post? They exited the stage. They decided, I don't want every lunch to be an event. I don't want every happy moment to have a camera on it. I don't want every success to require applause. They chose to live, not broadcast. And that choice gives them something algorithms can't. Here's the most unsettling part of all. When you stop posting, you become untouchable. People can't criticize what they can't see. They can't compare what they don't have access to. They can't gossip about what isn't public. And in that quiet zone, a rare kind of freedom appears. The freedom to fail without the internet watching, the freedom to grieve without likes, the freedom to change your mind without people asking, "What happened?" Tell me honestly, how many people today can change their life in silence? Switch jobs, change cities, leave a relationship, grow spiritually without announcing it? Very few, because they train their audience to expect constant updates. They turn their life into a series. And once you do that, you stop owning your story. You work for the viewers. That's why I said earlier, not posting is not hiding, it's owning. And this is even clearer if we look at time. People who live to post are attached to the instant, the photo, the story, the now. Everything is about capturing it before it's gone. But people who don't post live more in duration. They don't need proof to remember. They keep experiences in memory, not in the feed. Memory is richer than media. Memory keeps the smell, the sound, the emotion. Social media keeps the surface. That difference creates two kinds of lives: the life you live to show and the life you live to feel. Those who don't post chose the second. There's also a protection instinct at play. When you don't show your partner, your kids, your house, your parents, your money, your happy days, you are protecting what you love from unnecessary energy. Not everyone needs to see your joy. Not everyone deserves access to your progress. Some blessings grow in silence. Some relationships mature better without public opinion. Some goals need darkness to root. People who don't post have understood a very adult truth. Boundaries are not cold. Boundaries are love for what matters. Now let's connect this to power in relationships and social dynamics. Mystery is attractive. It always has been. When someone is not fully available online, your mind fills in the gaps. What are they doing? Where are they working? Who are they with? How are they so calm? Meanwhile, the person who posts every meal, every angle, every car ride, every late night thought, at some point, people feel like they've already seen all there is to see. There's no discovery left. In other words, silence keeps you three-dimensional. Oversharing makes you flat. And this has a long-term impact. People who are noisy online often have to work harder and harder to keep attention, more content, more personal, more vulnerable, more dramatic, because attention decays. But people who are selective don't have that problem. Their presence doesn't decay because it was never overused. So what does all of this lead to? A very simple but very sharp conclusion. Not posting is a way of saying, my life has meaning even if you don't see it. That's identity that doesn't need an audience. That's selfhood without a stage. And here's where I want to push you a bit. If tomorrow there was no Instagram, no TikTok, no YouTube, no stories, no feed, would you still go to the places you go? Would you still dress the way you dress? Would you still eat at the same cafes? Would you still travel to the same countries? If the answer is, I'm not sure, then somewhere along the way, your life started performing for other people. The people who don't post, they would keep living exactly the same because they were never performing, because they were never chasing applause, because their reward was the experience itself, not its screenshot. We'll go even deeper in the last part. So let's land this where it really matters, not out there on the screen, but right where you're sitting, because this whole video was never actually about whether you should post or not. That's surface. This was about ownership, about who holds the steering wheel of your life, you or the invisible crowd, about whether you live first and then maybe share, or whether you share first and hope that counts as living. Let me tell you something that many creators, influencers, even businesses don't want to admit. Constant visibility is a form of dependency. The more you show, the more you have to keep showing. The more you feed people with fragments of your life, the more people expect. And suddenly you wake up one day and realize you can't disappear anymore, not because you don't want to, but because you trained everyone and yourself that your value is in being seen. That's not freedom. That's being a performer trapped in a role you wrote for yourself. People who don't post don't have that problem. Their identity is not tied to an algorithm. Their relationships are not nourished by likes. Their sense of worth is not dependent on how many people saw their story. That's why I said earlier, In the future, the real luxury will not be to have more followers, it will be to not need them. Because think about it. What is the platform constantly pushing you to do? Because your attention is currency. Your life, broken into micro moments, is fuel. So the system benefits most from people who externalize everything. Feelings, locations, opinions, wounds, even spirituality. But the person who says, no, this part is mine, that person becomes unprofitable. And unprofitable equals uncontrollable. That's why I called it rebellion. Refusing to turn your private life into a product is a spiritual act in a capitalist age. And there is another truth hidden under all of this. What you keep in silence shapes you more than what you show. The love you don't flaunt, the project you build slowly, the habit you practice in the dark, the prayer no one hears, the healing no one claps for. Those things become your roots. Public things are branches. They can be cut, they can be broken, they can be copied. Private things are roots. They're unseen, but they hold the whole tree. So when someone tells you you never post, you're inactive, you're boring. Remember, what's boring for the timeline is often what's healthy for the soul. Let's talk about emotional safety for a moment, because we don't realize how much anxiety, comparison, jealousy, drama, and fake urgency come from exposing too much to people who haven't earned that level of access. When you post that you bought something, someone envies. When you post your relationship, someone comments. When you post your child, someone judges. When you post your trip, someone competes. A lot of the emotional noise people suffer from is not life, it's exposure. Those who don't post sleep better. Not because their life is perfect, but because fewer eyes are on it. And here's the paradox I promised you. The internet convinced us that if we don't show, we'll be forgotten. But the truth is the opposite. People who post everything become forgettable faster. They turn into background noise. But people who show up rarely, people who speak only when they have something to say, people who maintain mystery, those people stick in your mind. Silence, when chosen, is sticky. Which brings me to this question I want you to sit with. Who are you when the camera is off? I don't mean that in a poetic, abstract way. I mean literally. When you put the phone face down, when no notification is coming in, when no one is watching your story, do you still enjoy your own company? Do you still feel proud of your work? Do you still like your life? Or do you feel an emptiness that you instantly try to fill with a post? Because if your life only feels real when it's shown, then what you've built is not a life, it's a stage set. People who don't post understood this early. They realize they chose to experience instead of exhibit. They chose depth over display. They chose to be known by few instead of being seen by many. That's not shyness. That's hierarchy. That's deciding which eyes matter. Now let me remind you of something you probably felt while listening. All of this is not just about social media. It's about consciousness. It's about waking up from the unconscious habit of exposing yourself just because everyone else does. It's about asking, who taught me to show? Who benefits from me showing? And what would happen if I stopped? If you felt, even for a second, that you've been living more outward than inward, more for the feed than for your own memory, more for applause than for alignment, that's the invitation. Turn the direction. Take back your story. Choose what to reveal and what to protect. Keep some chapters unreleased. Because listen, the photos you never post, the trips you never mention, the people you love quietly, the victories you celebrate alone, those are the ones that will still be there when the platforms change, when the trends die. That's what will still be yours. So here's what I want you to do after this video. Write in the comments the single idea that hit you the hardest. Not your favorite quote, not to farm likes, but the line you want to remember when you open your phone next time. Maybe it was, silence is power. Maybe it was, not posting is rebellion. Maybe it was, I want to live for the memory, not the photo. Let's turn the comments section from a scoreboard into a notebook. And if this woke something up in you, if it made you look at your own patterns of posting, comparing, performing, subscribe. This channel is not for noise. It's for people who want to live with more intention, more inner authority. Share this with the person who is always online, always updating, always proving. Not to judge them, but because maybe no one has ever told them that they're allowed to keep things for themselves. And I'll close like this. Imagine I turn the screen off right now. No outro, no music, no animation, just black. That echo, that thing you keep thinking about, that's the real message. That's yours. And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing is not what we show, but what we refuse to show. Bill Dodd oversee in another set of .com. See you in the next video. Or maybe you won't. And that's exactly the point.